So to do a little bit of a recap, before I do a little recap, I wanted to share something. My method of designing and actually implementing the courses is that, first of all, I go through all the texts and themes and everything and put it online. And then I record it for the podcasts. So right now I'm doing the section of the Brahma Samhita audio, which we'll study in July. And I'm noticing that there's a term that's used quite often in the descriptions of the text and in the purports. And it's our situation here in this material world. When the actual creation takes place, the very subtle covering of the living entity causes what is called in these purports. Srila Prabhupada doesn't use the term very much, but it's succinct. It's a very nice term. Perverted cognition. In other words, people know things. The living entities in this world know things, but it's perverted cognition. They know the things of this world. They identify themselves with their bodies or with their identities that they think they are. And in this way, they create in their lives an illusion of who they really are by this perverted cognition. So weaving that into our recap, I wanted to share once again, chapter 8, some of the essential questions that Maharaj Pariksit asked. We go back to the beginning of the second canto. You remember that he asked Sukadeva Goswami, I've been cursed to die in 7 days. How should I prepare? What should I do? What should a person think about, hear about, and do to prepare themselves for death? And Sukadeva Goswami explained quite a bit, which enthused Maharaj Pariksit to ask further questions. So now we're going to go to those questions. And by reading these questions, at this point in our narration, understanding how the story has evolved to Brahma speaking to Narada, they're relevant. So let me share that screen and then we'll go from there. Okay, this is second canto, chapter 8, which was questions by Maharaj Pariksit. And specifically, this is texts 7 through 11. Maharaj Pariksit asked, O learned Brahmin, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose abdomen the lotus stem sprouted, is possessed of a gigantic body according to his own caliber and measurement, then what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and those of common living entities? Brahma, who was not born of a material source, but of the lotus flower coming out of the navel abdomen of the Lord, is the creator of all those who are materially born. Of course, by the grace of the Lord, Brahma was able to see the form of the Lord. Please also explain the personality of Godhead, who lies in every heart as the supersoul and as the Lord of all energies, but is untouched by his external energy. And finally, I included this verse because text 11 through the rest of the chapter becomes specific to the form of the universe and how it's designed. O learned Brahmin, it was formally explained that all the planets of the universe, with their respective governors, are situated in the different parts of the gigantic body of the Virat Purusha. I've also heard that the different planetary systems are supposed to be in the gigantic body of the Virat Purusha. But what is their actual position? Will you please explain that? So these questions set the foundation for Sukadeva Goswami to continue. And in the first 4 verses, he's directly explaining them in this section that we're reading now, which will bring us almost to the end of the second canto. And then in subsequent cantos, he'll go further into explaining more about the universe and how it's situated, how everything is situated in that Virat Purusha. But right now, I thought that this was a good introduction to link to these topics brought up by the Lord. So now we'll go to our lesson. This is June 2021, lesson 1, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, chapter 9, text 35. But as I mentioned in the email, this week will also include the first half of the purport for text 36, which is the final Chatusloki, because that purport is quite lengthy. So Samapriya, you want to pick someone to read, please? Unmute.
You usually begin with the first verse. Could you
Okay.
begin? And
Sure.
then after Maharaj, how about Bhadra? Would you read after my husband, please?
So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 35. Yata mahanti bhutani, bhutesu chavanestrasnu, parvistani aparvistani, tatha teshu natesvaham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. Bhadra?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
and your AC.
Oh, Dandavat. Sorry, I cannot.
All right, yeah.
But thank you, Dandavat everybody. Purport. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, fish, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested. And at the same time, such elements are differently situated.
Speak louder, Bhadra. Bhadra,
Sorry?
speak louder.
Yeah.
Louder.
Okay. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science. But the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they enter into the body construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos. At the same time, he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in Brahma Samhita 537 as follows. Avashya, the personality of God and Govinda, who by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss, enjoys his own in expanded forms. Simultaneously, he enters into every atom of the creation.
Thank you, Bhadra. Manvantara, would you read next? And then Vaishnavi.
I want to ask, does anybody have any questions? Each one of these slides, I tried to capture
Mute yourself, Bhadra.
Yeah, thank you. Each one of the slides is more or less a theme in itself. So this first part is explaining that concept of being within and without at the same time. Is it clear to everyone? Are there any questions? Or should we go on?
Can you elaborate, please?
Well, he gives the example, just as the elements. Everybody can see around us that the elements that create everything, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, they're in everything. And at the same time, the elements that are in your body, the exact same elements are not in my body. They're not in the bird's body. They're in your body. So they're in the body, but they're also outside of the body. They're other places. They're all around the universe and other planets. This is what's so insidious about modern science. We see life in every single element. There's earth, there's life in the earth, there's life in the water, there's life in the air. They don't know it, but there's life in fire. There's life even in subtle ether, like ghosts and images. Everyone knows that. So when you look up at the other parts of the universe at night and see all the different stars, those same elements in different combinations and permutations make up the universe. That's what it is. So there's life everywhere here, but they think there's no life on any of those other thousands and millions of planets, only on this one. How foolish. They're ignorant. This is why the Lord, in these particular verses, he's clarifying, he's showing, he's explaining how to see reality. He's actually the substance within everything. It all comes from him. So that's my little realization. If anyone else has something to say, that would be nice.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to add also that when I was thinking about this particular section, was that the ingredients are in like the ape and the human being. It's like scientists are saying that the ape is like 99.7% identical DNA to the human being, and they can't find a combination of elements that differentiates the ape or monkey from the human being. And I was thinking, Lord Brahman knows the science, but no one else can appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, I just thought it had relevance to the
Yes, it does.
I could say a small thing that this point that's being made in this verse about the elements, it's like the pradhan. The pradhan is the unmanifested material elements, and that always exists. The elements always exist. And even if the energy is made to create my body or a mountain's body or any single body, that doesn't mean the elements are used up. So that was my understanding of how the elements exist inside of everything created. And there's a stockpile of elements too, but in a more subtle and grand way. The elements are existing and they're not being used up. They're not being used up. So that's the way I was understanding this part of it anyway. Is that right? Anyone else have something to say? If not, we'll go on with Vaishnavi, Manvantara, and then Vaishnavi.
This expansion of his planetary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 35, as follows. I worship the personality of Godhead, Govinda, who by one of his planetary portions enter into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifest his infinite energy all over the material creation. The impersonalist can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all-pervading, and therefore they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of his transcendental knowledge. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead, and one who is surcharged with such transcendental love of Godhead can without difficulty see the personality of Godhead in every atom and every movable or immovable object. And at the same time, he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates, who are also expansions of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge, as stated by the Lord in the beginning. Can I skip that or?
Saharasyam tarangam cha.
Thank you. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed, though, through the process recommended by Brahmaji in this Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 38, as follows. I worship the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom the pure devotees, their eyes smeared with the ointment of love of Godhead, always observe within their hearts. This Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Shama Sundar with all transcendental qualities.
I'd like to just clarify something here, that we have to change our vision. We are used to seeing and identifying with everything that has a relationship with our body, the material energy. We are being trained or becoming aware of the reality of eternal divine energy, of spiritual energy. So that's actually I feel what's being dealt with in this section, that the body and the everything that is attached to the body, everything that we're dealing with in relation to the body and the mind, that has to be changed. And by hearing about Krishna, by engaging and reading the Bhagavatam, our mentality is being purified so that we can understand the spiritual energy. Nanda has a question. Nandaji?
Haribol, it's a comment.
Okay.
What really caught my attention in that section and in later parts, Prabhupada uses the word mystery about 5, 6, I mean, I didn't count them, but quite a number of times. He said this mystery. So when I was listening to the audio, I thought mystery. And by the time I got to the end of the purport, I thought, well, what's the mystery? So I had to go back and catch what the mystery is. Did you catch what the mystery is? The mystery is love of God. And when there's love of God, premanjana, on the eyes, then one can see and understand these things. Otherwise, it remains a mystery. I just thought.
Very nice.
Thank you. That also, Prabhupada also talks about personalism in the same way. Because we can't fall in love with a nothing. It's a person. Everything is being brought back to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Personality is a person. These functions cannot happen without a person behind them. Thank you, Nanda. That was
beautiful. Once again, I want to connect it back to the beginning topic that I introduced with perverted cognition.
Yeah.
By these instructions given by the Lord, he's unperverting our cognition. In other words, the eyes that Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena is being quoted as the person who sees the Lord within everything. He's there, but you have to have the proper cognition to understand how he's there and that he's there. And it's not just intellectual, it's love, as you brought up in the mystery.
Yeah.
That love helps one see everything more through those eyes.
Thank you. Okay, Vaishnavi, can you read? And then Tisha.
Okay. Purport continued. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees because their eyes are anointed with love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures or as performed in the Vaikuntha Loka, far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, or factually being televised in the heart of a devotee. The man with poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The mystery is solved here.
The mystery is solved, and that is what we are wanting. We want our hearts to be that pure that we can actually see what's going on in the spiritual world. But we're blinded thinking we're this body and everything that is going on around us. This is the real important stuff.
I wanted to ask Pritam. I don't see your video, but maybe you can help explain in your forum entry on this topic. You were quoting the different acharyas and how they explain that this rahasyam is being discussed in this verse, that the love of Godhead is, it sounds almost like it's just science, that the elements are within and they're without. So did you, first of all, where are you getting those quotes? Some of them I know you put together, but some of them you must have caught from somewhere else. And secondly, did you have any further realization about how that rahasyam enters into something that maybe just intellectually understood at the beginning, but then matures, melts, and enters into the heart of the devotee so that they actually see with that vision, not just intellectually perceive it?
Okay, thank you. So when I go through these Chatusloki verses, I know they are very profound. So what I do is I just basically search on different forums, internet, about what are the different acharyas have written about it. There is so many different acharyas have commented about it. So I just try to find, what is their realization about this verse. And in this particular verse, the word rahasya has been very elaborately described by all the acharyas. For example, Sridhar Swami says that rahasya means pure devotional service. Whereas Srila Jiva Goswami actually takes it further. He says that as the material elements are within and without, similarly, the Lord resides within the devotee's thoughts, within the heart, as well as the Lord is outside. And pure devotees can see the Lord with their own eyes when it is anointed with the love of Godhead. So it's very interesting to see how different acharyas have commented about it. But what really like about our Srila Prabhupada commentary is he really gives the practical application. He just said, okay, the hasya means pure devotional service, and we have to perform our sadhana bhakti so that we become purified, our eyes become anointed with love, so that we can reveal that mystery is revealed to us. So Srila Prabhupada takes all of this. That's what I really like about Prabhupada, that he so beautifully, he takes the commentaries of the different acharyas and then he puts it in his own words. So nothing is left out. If you read Srila Prabhupada commentary, I think purport is everything is there. That's what I've realized. Like all the meaning of rahasya by different acharyas. And Srila Prabhupada quoted this in the previous slide where you just went through it, right? The mystery thing. It's all there. So that's amazing. And my practical realization is that from a philosophical standpoint, an intellectual standpoint, do understand that we are materially contaminated. We are still conditioned. We are not able to see or realize this pure devotional service. And that's where chanting of the holy name really comes into the picture, because as we chant, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam, our heart becomes purified, it becomes clear, and then gradually, hopefully in this lifetime, maybe, we should be able to become completely purified to have this mystery fully revealed to us, right? So that's my realization.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pritam. But now I have to say that when you scan the internet for different opinions of different people, you have to be very careful and keep very chaste to Srila Prabhupada's words, because we can get thoroughly confused. You know, someone might say that Jiva Goswami has said this, but then you have to check, who is that someone who said that? And is it bent by his words? So that's Srila Prabhupada translated these and created these purports for us specifically. And he said often that Krishna whispered in his ear all all the knowledge in these purports. So I also am very, two things, glad that you are curious to find out, and you do it so well. You put it together so well, Pritam, but be a little cautious because we have to know who to hear from. I try to stress this often, that that will keep us from confusion.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's the drawback of my intellectual curiosity.
Okay, so be careful, but
I appreciate your question.
okay, but don't worry, if you're saying something off, then my husband will immediately
I know.
call it out. Okay, so now let's go on with Tisha and then Nandaji after her.
Okay, purport continued. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. Yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada. Muktim dadati karchit smana bhakti yogam. That's my try.
Good
Very good.
girl.
This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities without deviation from the absolute touch. Thus, love of Godhead developed in the heart of the devotee is a great victory. Brahmaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of bhakti yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is achyuta, similarly, the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotisiv api mahumane, out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection in devotional service is the highest of all and the most mysterious also, even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances.
Thank you, Tisha. Does anyone oh, Nandaji, do you have another question or a comment before you read?
I have a question. So that first sentence, the Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. Yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada. So how do we reconcile that understanding when Srila Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction, in the 3rd verse in the purport, he says my favorite sentence of all of his purports, you know it, right? Because I say it so much, right? Where he says, the process of bhakti is so pure and perfect that once having begun, one is dragged to ultimate success. So I get the impression from that verse, and I've seen it other places too, that Krishna, and it's there in Nectar of Devotion, that Krishna doesn't award pure devotional service very easily. But I thought if you go through the process that gradually you're going to come to pure devotional service, aren't we?
Nothing is, as far as my understanding, nothing is automatic because of our free will. In developing love, this is the process, but our heart has to change also.
I think in this purport, and in most of Srila Prabhupada's purports, he writes what would be called objectively rather than subjectively. So in that statement where we say the Lord can award anyone liberation from the bondage of material existence, he's including the karma yogis, the jnana yogis, and the bhakti yogis. but then he rarely awards the privilege of love of God because he must be approached purely by bhakti. And the karma yogis, the gyanis, the mystic yogis and Astanga yogis, they're not focused solely on bhakti. So he's discriminating, but because you're associating all the time with bhakti yogis, you're just thinking of bhakti yogis. And therefore you're wondering why he's not. But yes, bhakti yoga will pull the practitioner to love of Godhead. That's it. That will happen. That's the process, and that when that's recommended. But I think that's the discerning part in this particular purport.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Go
Wait,
on.
I just have one little question about like, and I know maybe this is silly, but what is really the difference between if you can have liberation, but I don't know what the difference is. Like there are people who you can be liberated but not have love of Godhead. It doesn't seem to me like these are two separate things.
All
In that
right.
first
This-
sentence that Nandi just read, where it says that people can be liberated but still not have
Develop love.
Nanda, you want to answer that, Nandaji?
Sure, unless Dhruva wants to.
No, go ahead.
Well, so the term, this is again, the term liberation is like an umbrella. It's a very broad term. There's very different levels of liberation. Sometimes it's used quite, I'm going to use the word casually, but I don't know if that's the correct word, but liberation, it gets liberated. And what are you getting liberated from? You're getting liberated from the cycle of, birth, death, old age, and disease. So that means a person might get liberated to the level of Brahman liberation. Brahman means it's all one, you're just a little particle of consciousness, and there's no personality, there's no understanding of the personality of Godhead. So that's liberation, but it's not love of Godhead, which is higher still, I heard a really nice class by Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj, the Maharaj from Mayapur, and he was talking about, he was giving this whole thing about liberation and all the different levels of liberation, and he compared it to, just to give us a visual of it, just like a child who's going to school, when that bell rings at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, whatever, and his school's over, what does he feel? He feels liberated. So in that sense, there's a relief from the study and the pressures of school, but it's not real liberation. It's not real happiness. And then he gave a few other examples so we could see different gradations of a feeling of liberation, but not the real attainment of liberation, which is bhakti yoga. Okay.
Because one might fall down from the platform of liberation, really, if there's no engagement, because we're individuals and we need engagement, and the whole thing is based on love and relationships. Without relationships, you fall down. Prabhupada uses that example in the airplane. If you're in the airplane after 12 hours, you want to go down. So we naturally are inclined to have relationships, and that's why if someone achieves divine love of Krishna, then he will very rare for him to be attracted to something else in the material world that is temporary.
Does that answer it, Tisha?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, now do you want to read, and then Ian?
Yes, purport continued. The same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narada in the following words, quote, "Whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I am advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious bhakti yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord," unquote. It is to be noted here that the mystery of bhakti yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narada. Narada explained it to Vyasa. Vyasa explained it to Sukadeva Goswami, and the same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have a chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord.
So there you have it. Perfect. Okay. So we're ending this verse now, and we'll go on to the next verse, the last of the Chatur Shloki. Did anyone want to, Patti, do you have something to say about, before we continue on to about this verse?
No, I think we're covering it nicely. I'm just appreciate, whenever I hear it, it's almost like if you met someone that talked to God, had a personal conversation with him, and the Lord instructed him, and then that person shared with you what the Lord said. That's the most wonderful information you could receive from anywhere, other than meeting him yourself, which this is practically the same thing. So this line of disciplic succession and the parampara system that the Lord has designed and implemented for receiving knowledge in this material world is unfounded. We can see that no other religion has such succinct clarity and truth over the ages. It becomes perverted, it becomes changed, even in this system. Evam parampara paptam imam rajarseo vidusa kalenihi mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Yogo nashta parantapa means that it becomes lost in due course of time. Even when there's a disciplic succession, we have to be very careful, as Samapriya was mentioning to Pritam, about searching for who is that true representative, who's actually going to distribute the knowledge without personal interpretation or one of the four defects that affects conditioned souls in the transmission of that information. It's natural that it's going to happen, and we see it already. So even in this parampara, we've seen it so many times.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next and final Chatur Shloki. Ian, are you there?
Alibo, yes, I'm here.
Hare Krishna, welcome
Krishna.
back. Okay, so
Okay.
please, you read this major, wonderful verse.
I
And
will
you can go on
try.
to the next little purport, that's the part of the purport that's after it. You continue reading, and after Ian, Madhurya Leela,
Oh, I tried the Sanskrit.
if you like.
Yes.
Oh, Itapad, Iva, Jigyas, Yam, Tata, Jigyasa, Asuna, Manaha, Ambaya, Reactivic, Haka, Abeyam, Yatsayat, Savatra, Savada. Hope I did my best. Translation: a person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in our circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Purport: to unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, as it is explained in the previous verse, is the ultimate stage of all inquiries, with the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by Karma Yoga, by Jnana Yoga, by Dhyana Yoga, by Raj Yoga, by Bhakti Yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields: social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in their different branches. But here, the goal of all such inquiries is explained.
This is one of my favorite verses ever. This is all pervasive. This is how to realize Krishna in everything. He is all pervasive. He should be searched for indirectly and directly in all things, in all circumstances. We think we're the doer. We are not the doer. Everything is ordained and organized by Krishna. It's even being performed by Krishna. So that is very Anyone else have something to say about that real quick? This is so astounding to me.
I have a question.
Yes, Peter.
Prabhu, could you please go back to the translation of the verse?
Back.
Yeah, so, excuse me. So in this it says, must certainly search for it up to this. What does this refer to? Does it refer to Krishna, Bhakti Yoga?
No, this means what's going to come. This means in all circumstances, space and time, both directly and indirectly. Prabhupada is just saying, this is what it is. If you want to search for the Supreme Personality Godhead, do it in this way, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Pati, unmute.
If we were to do this, Pritam.
Mhm. Okay. Same thing here.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Ian, for reading. And Madhurya Leela, would you like to read?
Sure.
Okay. Nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. Nice to hear yours. Purport. So we're just starting right at the top there, the Vedanta Sutra.
Yes.
The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry about life, and the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to the point or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead, and here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses, from Aham Eva to this verse, Tavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. The whole material existence has sprung up because of sense gratification, desires based principally on the sex desire. And the result is that in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here, the real goal of life, and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of Bhakti Yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the Supreme Personality Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before such a spiritual master, who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master is that bona fide chain of disciplic succession, never claimed to be the Lord himself. Although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master.
Madhurya, can you give us just point out one or two things in the purport that really strike you?
Yeah, we can't know Krishna by education or having a good brain. It has to come through a bona fide spiritual master who's in disciplic succession, and just like Lord Brahma received it through from Krishna himself. So that is the crux of this part of the purport, that has to be through a spiritual master.
Yeah. Thank you. That's perfect. Hati, unmute.
Who can give the example that Prabhupada often quotes or gives, an analogy? Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And that is the direction of this verse. So what is an example Srila Prabhupada always gives? That you're able to, anybody can go read the book, but that doesn't mean they're going to be qualified for
An operation, to perform an operation.
Yeah, medical students. Prabhupada gives the example that anybody can go read the medical books, they're available. But that isn't going to qualify one for understanding. What, would you go to a doctor that had never been to medical school but had read the books for your operation? I wouldn't.
That happens in Vrindavan a lot in India.
Yeah.
Also, there's an example of asking you can speculate who your father is.
Huh? Good.
But you have to ask your mother, and she will tell you who.
But
She'll tell you the truth, right? Who it actually is.
Someone else.
There's also another view in this, because this is not medical operation, is material, and whereas spiritual things can be imparted to anybody, is what people who follow all other about 100,000 different non-bona fide sects in India, like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Vivekananda. You cannot talk to anyone about them, because then they start saying, no, don't compare a surgery to spirituality.
Well, oftentimes, that if you can't use examples that we're familiar with in this world, then how can you express truth to someone who's in this world? What would be their, if I can't use an analogy of something that you're familiar with to show you how it applies to a spiritual truth, then how could you understand a spiritual truth? There's no way to understand it, because we're in this world, and this world is the one we understand and engage in.
And that's why Srila Prabhupada his disciplic succession that he is giving us is so wonderful. And Srila Prabhupada specifically is teaching us very, very very chastely this philosophy. It really, really depends who you hear from, and that's dependent upon your own desire. If you really want to know the truth, Krishna will send a spiritual master. What's that verse? Oh my goodness, what's that verse? When Krishna sends a spiritual master for one who is desirous, and the spiritual master delivers Krishna. So we have to be careful what we desire. In fact, this verse to me meant a little, it took a little different turn. We have to be very careful what we desire, not only that, but why we desire. You see, why are we desiring something? Are we desiring spiritual life to remain in the material world, or are we desiring spiritual life to leave this? Leave it means have the pure vision of what is real and what is not, what is eternal and is spiritual, and what is temporary and material.
I don't want to get too entangled, but Vaishnavi, even the other groups that you are speaking of, they have a teacher and they have students. The teacher isn't telling the students, you go ahead and just read the book, and whatever you realize from it, that'll be your reality. I've never, they still have the same system of a teacher and a disciple, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
So that example of the doctor with the surgeon is just an example to show how it functions in real life. But they're following that same system as well, having a teacher and following his realizations of that knowledge.
Right. We just have to find the right teacher. That's the whole point.
Right.
You have to find the right teacher. Okay.
Yes.
We'll go. Let's go along with Pritam reading, and then after Pritam, Narayan.
Purport continued. The revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end, but because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad-Gita, the whole direction is targeted toward the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna. But for want of a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Brahmaji or the direct hearer, Arjuna, there are different distortions of the revealed knowledge by many unauthorized persons who just want to satisfy their own whims. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad-Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars in the horizon of the spiritual sky. Yet the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of the Bhagavad-Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. Such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad-Gita. In the Gita, practically the same instruction is imparted as in the 4 prime verses of the Bhagavatam. But due to wrong and fashionable interpretations by unauthorized persons, one cannot reach the ultimate conclusion. In the Bhagavad-Gita 1861, it is clearly said that the Lord is situated in the heart of all living beings as Paramatma, and he is controlling all of them in the material world under the agency of his external energy. Therefore, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is the supreme controller and that the living entities are controlled by the Lord. In the same Bhagavad Gita 1865, it is clear that one should be God-minded, a devotee of the Lord, a worship of the Lord, and must offer all obeisances unto Lord Krishna. By so doing, the devotee will undoubtedly go back to Godhead, back to home.
I love the way Srila Prabhupada does this. We were just talking about a concept, and now he fluffed it out so we can further understand it even in more detail. And here's a practical example. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, Pritam. That was beautiful. Okay, Narayan read, and then Bhadra.
Okay, purport continued. Indirectly, it is said that the whole Vedic social construction of human society is so made that everyone acts as a part and parcel of the complete body of the Lord. The intelligent class of men, or the Brahmanas, are situated on the face of the Lord. The administrative class of men, the Kshatriyas, are situated on the arms of the Lord. The productive class of men, the Vaishyas, are situated on the belt of the Lord, and the laborer class of men, the Sudras, are situated on the legs of the Lord. Therefore, the complete social construction is the body of the Lord, and all the parts of the body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishnavas, and the Sudras, are meant to serve the Lord whole body, conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Therefore, even the great scientists, the great philosophers, the great mental speculators, the great politicians, the great industrialists, the great social reformers, etc., cannot give any relief to the restless society of the material world because they do not know the secret of success as mentioned in this verse of the Bhagavatam, namely that one must know the mystery of Bhakti Yoga.
Thank you. So there's the answer again. In all times, all places, all circumstances, one should seek to understand the presence of Krishna. So that, and also another part of the purport that I thought was wonderful. It seems like the world today is trying to put everybody in the same box. It's a natural thing that we are all different. There are chachas, there are vaishyas, there are sudras, there are people who are combinations of different things. Everyone's an individual. And everyone's a part of the body of the Lord. So through our individual mode, we follow these instructions given by Krishna, by Srila Prabhupada, and then we can achieve the goal of life. We can be who we are. We can be individuals. So now I think we'll go on now with Bhadra and then
can I just ask a
yes,
question?
please, Madhya.
That's a part of the discussion because I have to do something. Did Nanda's question get answered about the mystery, that mystery of the Bhagavad-Gita, or the mystery
She
of
gave the
Bhakti Yoga,
answer.
rather? What did she
The
say?
answer was love of God is the answer to the mystery. Love of God is the answer. We have to love.
So the mystery is the love of God. That's in Bhakti Yoga.
How to achieve it, or love. That's the answer to the mystery. Love. We have to love God. We have to love Krishna, and we have to find him in all these different ways that are being referred to in this verse. Pati, do you want to add to that, or Nanda too?
Nanda too, of course. The point is that when one has this love of Godhead, then he or she sees with that emotion, with that sense, with that love, that influences their vision of something. Just like Srila Prabhupada gave the example of the mother who sees the baby's shoes. When the mother sees the shoes, they think of the baby, and automatic love arises. So the point being made in that mystery is that the Lord's explaining how he's inside everything and also outside of everything, where the devotee sees that due to love. That is the mystery. The mystery's been solved because he sees the Lord in everything and therefore sees with the eyes anointed with the salve of love. Nanda, anything further?
Yeah, because not only is not only has the mystery been solved, but that's the end of the road, you can say, love of God. But Prabhupada gives how you get there by devotional service. Or, Lord, it's all there. By devotional service, by executing devotional service, then one can develop love of God. That's the mystery, and that's how you get there, through devotional service. And then you can see properly.
Right.
It doesn't end. It doesn't end because it becomes more and more mysterious. That's another part of the mystery. It becomes more and more mysterious. And then when you think, oh my goodness, what happened to my love of God? I don't have love of God. So it's a very wonderful Rasikic experience, this whole thing.
Thank you. Nice.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So now, Bhadra, please read, and then Manvantara.
Continuation. Because these so-called great leaders of human society are ignorant of the strict knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and are always engaged in ignoble acts of the sense gratification, bewildered by the external energy of the Lord, they are stubborn rebels against the supremacy of the Supreme Personality, and they never agree to surrender unto Him because they are fools, miscreants, and the lowest type of human beings. Such faithless non-believers may be highly educated in the material sense of the term, but actually they are the greatest fools of the world because by the influence of the external material energy, all their so-called acquisition of knowledge has been made null and void. Heavy sentences. Therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being misused by cats and dogs fighting with one another for sense gratification. And all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, astrologism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoiled by being used as dresses for a dead man. There is no utility in the dresses used for covering the coffin of a dead body. Save getting, boy, heavy, isn't it? Dead body. Save getting false applause from the ignorant couple. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore says again and again that without attainment of the state of Bhakti Yoga, all the activities in society are to be considered absolutely waste time. As long as one is blind to inquire about after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat, because the aim of human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. The function of the human body is to attain freedom from material body. But as long as one is fully absorbed in material activities, his mind will be overwhelmed in the world full of matter, and thus he will continue to be engaged in material bodies, life after life.
No, that we don't want. Thank you, Bhatraji. What do you think about that real quick?
Heavy. Heavy.
The truth is heavy, and guru means heavy.
Yep.
Thank you. Manvantara, would you like to read? And then Vaishnavi.
It is one's mind that generates different kinds of bodies for suffering different kinds of material pangs. Therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience, and thus one is sure to be subjected to material bondage in different bodies again and again, until one develops a transcendental love for Godhead, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person. To become absorbed in the transcendental name, quality, form, and activities of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization, and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in different material bodies. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada therefore comments on the word sarvatra sarvada in the sense that principles of bhakti yoga or devotional service to the Lord are apt in all circumstances, like bhakti yoga is recommended in all the revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. As far as all the revealed scriptures are concerned, he quotes from the Skanda Puran on the topics of Brahma and Narada as follows. In the material world, which is full of darkness and dangers, combined with birth and death, and full of different anxieties, the only way to get out of the great entanglement is to accept loving, transcendental devotional service to Lord Vasudeva. This is accepted by all classes of philosophers. I don't know how to say that Sanskrit nicely.
That's okay.
Fine,
The meaning was clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Manvataraji. In this purport, it's very clearly explained how this search that we're looking for Krishna in all circumstances, directly, indirectly, in all situations, bhakti yoga, that's bhakti yoga. The search is bhakti yoga. When we spend our lives seeking Krishna through devotional service, that search is actually bhakti yoga. Am I right, Pratish?
Yes. One other thing that's going to be clear as we progress into Brahma Samhita also, that's pointed out from him. Remember how he had to perform tapa? Tapa was fixing his mind on the mantra that was given to him. So that's also part of our process. The search, also thinking about these activities. In the beginning of today's lessons, way back in the beginning, I think it might have been the first purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying that this process that the Lord is giving, he was saying in all times and all circumstances, he said one who is applying that becomes to the point where in all psychological activities, connecting it with Krishna. That's what love develops.
And unfortunately, we become distracted in this world We become distracted. We engage in devotional service, and then we are also doing so many other things that are attractive to us. And that's where the tapa comes in. Sometimes it's a tapasya not to do without some of those other things that distract us from the goal. And that happens naturally, I think, that as one engages in devotional service. Okay, so Vaishnavi, would you like to read? And then Tisha, we're going to try to finish this whole thing real.
Okay, purport continued. Srila Jiva Goswami also quotes another common passage which is found in 3 Puranas, namely the Padma Purana, Skanda Purana, and Linga Purana. It runs as follows. By scrutinizingly reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayana is the supreme absolute truth, and thus he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in Garuda Purana as follows. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered the lowest of mankind. Similarly, it is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.8.12 indirectly as follows. One who has unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead must have all the good qualities of the demigods. And contrarily, one who is not a devotee of the Lord must be hovering in the darkness of mental speculation and thus must be engaged in mental impermanence. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.18 says, one may be well versed in all the transcendental literatures of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone. Every woman, the Shudras, the forest tribes, or any other living being born in sinful conditions. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service, devotional life, if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service.
Thank you. Tisha, and then Nandaji.
Actually, Sama,
Well,
I
we
think
have
I think that
stop.
we can do one more and then stop, and then I'll just add these final slides to next week's.
Okay.
This was really beautiful. There was 2 points made. The first one was pointing out that all the scriptures point to devotional service. And then the second part, Prabhupada's pointing out that anyone from any walk of life can perform that service because it's the natural condition of the soul, actually. That was very beautifully done. Thank you, Vaishnavi. So this will be the last one for today.
You put those together.
Tisha?
Okay. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with...
Wait a second. Manvatara, did you have a question?
Okay, sorry, Tisha. I just wanted to, because as she was reading this, it kind of came to my mind about the cow and the milk, and then I started thinking about how, you know, how Lord Krishna has certain functions when he comes as an avatar, and like you said about
Manvantara, we have a
Manvantara, wait, darling. There's technical difficulty. Go on, Vaishnavi.
Manvantara, can you hear me? I don't think she can hear us.
Manvantara, wait.
Manvantara, Haribol, you're breaking up, so you need to stop the video so that we can just hear your audio question. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So turn off the video.
Yes.
Turn off your video. It will, there you go. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Can I be heard now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was thinking about functions, the function of the human being when the reading was talking about the cow without milking capacity. And I was thinking about the proper utility of the human being. And then and then my question got lost in this whole thing as we were going through. So anyway, I apologize. I'm sorry. My mind is all over the place.
Was there something you wanted to say about the cow? And
well,
and
I
that
wanted to ask about, but I guess it was answered about the proper function of the human being. Like human beings have function also, which it was mentioned that it's because the human being's purpose of life is to understand God.
That's it. That's the proper function. That can be done in so many different ways according to one's individual nature. But the spiritual master comes to show the way. And Lord Chaitanya has delivered the way to us. So
let me go over that one more time so that it becomes clear, Manvantara. This is the verse here. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literatures of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. In other words, one can be very well versed and able to chant all kinds of mantras and do all kinds of rituals. But if that person hasn't realized the Supreme by his activity interaction with the Vedas, then it's like keeping a cow that can't give milk. Is that clear?
Okay,
We can't hear you.
it was she put a thumb up.
Okay.
Okay, we got it. Okay, so Tisha, why don't you read the last verse?
Okay. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfectional life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So what to speak of the philosophers amongst the human beings? Therefore, there is no need to seek properly qualified candidates for discharging devotional service to the Lord. Let them be either well-behaved or ill-trained. Let them be either learned or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced order of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let them be inexpert in the discharge of devotional service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotional service under the proper guidance.
So do you understand that the essence of that? What is the essence of that, Tisha?
Everyone and everything can be develop love of God.
Because it is the natural propensity of everyone to serve Krishna. Okay, so Pati, you want to see if anyone has
want to share one thing that will confirm this verse from the Garuda Purana, saying that even worms, birds, and beasts, trees, and plants can attain love of Godhead. Might sound kind of far-fetched, but in one of our readings, we're reading a book called Brihat Bhagavatamrita that was written by Sanatana Goswami. And he's quoting a verse from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the residents of Vrindavan, the trees, the plants, the deer, the birds, the bees, everybody is in love of Krishna because he's so beautiful and wonderful. So it's true.
And also in the spiritual world, everything has a personality. Even in this world, everything has a personality. Prabhupada said on a tape the other day, even the ant, you put your finger in the front of an ant, so he'll go the other way. There's some intelligence there. So we're basically all individual people, you know, in different forms. And the propensity, the natural propensity of the soul is to serve Krishna. Anyone else have something to say? Nanda, you still with us? Madhurya Leela, are you wanting to say something, or is that just your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that
Okay.
every time I read the Chatusloki verses, it always amazes me how so-called they look so simplistic, and yet Lord Brahma was able to fluff them out into the four Vedas. So it's you know how he did that is amazing to me.
So,
You know, it's hard to imagine how all the four Vedas are within those four Chatusloki verses.
I think the principle of the Lord speaking so succinctly includes all those things within it, just like the big tree is in the seed. He's so expert at speaking that he's expressing things that can be fluffed out like that. But yes, it's certainly a phenomenon beyond our intelligence.
Not only can it be fluffed out, but it is eternally being fluffed out. Everything is increasing at every moment. This is the basic Chatusloki. This is the basic seeds, but everything about Krishna in all times, all places, all circumstances, eternally evolving. That's why we were talking about love, the love of God. So even in the spiritual world, it's eternally evolving. You never get to the end. It's eternal and infinite. So, Madhurya,
is it that with like the first Chatusloki was the first Veda, and then the second one, or actually the Vedas were all one first, and then they were divided. So I guess there's no real way that these Chatusloki were divided up, right, amongst the Vedas.
Yeah, no, they expanded first, then were delegated differently.
But from these four verses, everything can come,
right.
Isn't it?
Like the medical and military sciences, all that. How does that come about?
Oh, you have to. Krishna's not limited like us. He can do anything, and actually, in those verses, it's all there. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Hare Krishna. Anyone? Bhaja has something to say. Bhajaji.
So this four Chatusloki, the slokas, is that from there the Vyasadeva elaborated into 18,000 slokas of Srimad Bhagavatam?
What was the stated again? You see, made it hard to hear for me.
From these four Chatusloki Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vyasadeva elaborated into 18,000 slokas in Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, first Brahma did, right? Or Brahma was told Narada to do it. He told Narada to expand it, and then Narada told Vyas to expand it. See, the Bhagavatam is very expansive. Not only these 18,000 verses, even more. We're only seeing these 18,000 verses. It's eternal and ever expansive.
I want to share a purport coming up.
Roger, your AC is like you got to get it fixed.
I'll share a verse that I know is coming up, a purport here that explains it very nicely. Give me a sec. Okay. Although Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in 4 verses, it had 10 characteristics, which will be explained in the next chapter. In the 4 verses, it is said that the Lord existed before the creation, and thus the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam includes the Vedanta aphorism, Janmadya Asya. Janmadya Asya is the beginning. Yet the 4 verses in which it is said that the Lord is the root of everything that be, beginning from the creation up to the supreme abode of the Lord, naturally explain those 10 characteristics. One should not misunderstand by wrong interpretations that the Lord spoke only 4 verses, and therefore all the rest of the 17,994 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji had also advised Narada previously that he should expand the idea he had heard from Brahmaji. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed this to Srila Rupa Goswami in a nutshell, but the disciple, Rupa Goswami, expanded this very elaborately, and the same subject was further expanded by Jiva Goswami, and even further by Sri Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand it according to one's own ability, Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Srimad Bhagavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses, all the same, inasmuch as the Lord is smaller than this atom and bigger than the unlimited sky. Such is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So anyone else have something? Because I guess we're finished the reading for today. Does anybody have another question or comment to make?
Is this Srila Prabhupada's longest purport in his writings?
In the Bhagavatam, I think it might be.
Yeah.
No,
But
I think
not
I
the-
think a longer one is Srimvatam Swakata Krishna.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it's a long one, yes.
It's a long
So we'll
one.
continue it
My
next week.
goodness.
Okay.
So much nectar.
Jai.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Sundari Ditana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.